Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart, and in this video I am going to be doing a painting with a complementary color scheme. I have sped this video up to 150% just so it's slow enough that you can see what I'm doing, but fast enough that you don't get bored. So I am starting off with Daniel Smith Jadeite Genuine. I love this color for like winter foliage. It's a nice cool color and it granulates beautifully, and when it granulates you get some like black granule texture. For this, I do have my board up at an angle and I have it tilted at a diagonal instead of just up and down. That allows the water to flow from one corner to the other. And I am doing it where it's like going to be much darker in the upper right corner and then get lighter as we go to the lower left. Just making sure, go in nice and dark if you want to do these kinds of washes in a few areas, just because the watercolor will dry paler. And now I'm going in and just adding some water and putting in the impression of some leaves. So I don't have a reference image for this. I am using my imagination based on some bushes that I see on my drive home after dropping off my daughter at daycare. And I'm not about to pull over and take a picture of just some berry bushes, but I do commit it to my mind and go, oh, those are really pretty. I wonder if I can paint something like that. So this is a moment of being inspired, not trying to copy any sort of photograph. And I do recommend trying this every so often. And so I'm just going through and lifting, and not everything has to become a leaf later, but it's giving me a bit of a roadmap of where I might want to place things. And then of course it makes more water be introduced, which pushes more of the paint and giving me more of that granulation. The block of paper I'm using is like a 7x10, it's called Academy. It's a block that I use for studies. It's fairly inexpensive, but it handles water and paint very well. Now I'm going in with very strong, fresh Daniel Smith permanent red pigment. And I am just dotting those in a few areas to suggest berries. Now I want to be careful because green and red are complementary colors. And so when I place the red, I want to place it and leave it alone. If I start messing with it, it's going to mix the two paints. And while I did pick these two paints because they do mix fairly well for complementary colors, that's not what I want. I want these berries to be nice and red. I want the foliage to be a brilliant green. I am going through with a dry brush, or mostly dry. I am getting the excess moisture off on my paper towel and just lifting circular shapes to create some shine and to suggest the roundness of these berries. And I don't need to do it with all of them. Some of them are like hidden within the foliage, but I still need enough so that it translates that these are berries. Though honestly, with how many of us have seen green leaves, red berries, I probably didn't need to do this. But why not? You really need to pay attention to the water of your paper, like how wet or dry it is. And in this case, if the area is too wet, even if you go lift it, the paint around it is going to flood into the area, and then you don't get the effect you want. So I do have to pay attention to the wetness of the paper, and it's best to start at that upper corner versus the lower one, because as the water is pouring downwards, the lower left corner is going to stay wet longer than the upper right. And you do want to do it before the paint gets too dry. And this entire painting is just going to be done with these two colors. And a red and green color scheme is very popular in the winter time, at least here in the United States. The brush I am using is a Princeton Neptune size 10 round brush. And I've had this brush, I think, since 2019. It's held up very well. All right, my wash has dried and I am now, this is a to-go painting in that I do my big wash, let it dry, and then I put in my details and that'll be it. So this is very much a process of negative painting, and where I mostly just do little triangles all over to separate leaves. Some areas I don't want to put the triangles because the wash I got is separating the leaves well enough, and I like lost and found edges. I want things to be hard and soft, and I want to be wary of not putting too much detail like around the edges. I want the eye to flow through the painting in a natural way that keeps it from going off the edge and leaving the work of art. But I like this style. It's a bit of an oxymoron, abstract realism. I keep my colors real, my proportions are proper, but it is kind of abstract. Now, I record my audio well after the fact, and I do that usually because I want to be able to concentrate on what I'm doing. But as I'm watching this, I think I might go and speed this up quite a bit, because this really is just a bunch of triangles and then bleed it away. I've got 2 brushes going. I've got my size 8 silver black velvet round brush, and then I grabbed a size 8 mimic brush. So I've got my black brush that I'm filling with pigment off to the side, and then using the synthetic brush to bleed it away. And one of the things I love about doing an atmospheric first wash with a lot of bold color is the shapes come through. Because I didn't have a sketch, I'm making it up as I go. I find a shape, or imagine one, and then I make it happen by adding some darks around it. And so this is where knowing how to play with value comes into play. Play with value, into play. I need more coffee. Because by placing a dark color, or rather a dark value, I'm using the same color for all of this. But by placing that darker value, it allows the surrounding area to pop forward. Lovely little illusion. Now I'm going to go ahead and skip with my thought process. I did consider at some point adding some permanent alizarin crimson, which is a colder red, to give more shape and definition to the berries, but I did it in one section and I didn't like how it looked. I really like this incredibly loose, borderline abstract appearance. And I didn't add any gouache either. This whole painting will be done with just the red and the green. So you don't need a ton of colors to make a fantastic work of art. What you really need are knowing your shapes and your values. And just having an interest in what you're doing. Now that might sound a little silly, but I've had this painting idea in my head for a little while, but I didn't want to do like a big, full, giant piece. Well, what's wrong with just pulling out a small block and enjoying myself, having fun, exploring? At best, I come out with a frameable piece. At worst, well, at least I got to paint. And any day I get to paint, well, that helps it be just a little bit better. It really does help my mood. And so I do encourage it for all of you too. It's a very busy time of year. There's so much going on. And, well, I'll just leave it at there is so much going on that just taking a few minutes for yourself to just sit back, grab a couple of pigments, a couple brushes, and a paper towel. And I would definitely recommend fewer but higher quality paints versus having a ton of paints. And especially like in the beginning of your journey, because you don't really know exactly what you like yet. And it's really easy to fall into the, oh, I need this and I want this and I need to get that, especially if you see an artist you admire using it. But it's okay to start out with just a few things. If you can only get one brush, I do recommend this size 8 silver black velvet. And if you are vegan or you don't want to have natural fibers, the Princeton Neptune series is a synthetic series and it is also a very good quality. And when it comes to these kinds of paintings where you're bringing the subject to life by painting around it, using that negative painting, take your time, enjoy the process. Take a step back every so often and see the painting as a whole. And oddly enough, sometimes looking at a painting through a camera lens, so like just your iPhone or smartphone, I guess I should say, I don't know what it is about it, but sometimes if I'm stuck, I'll just look at it through my phone screen and then I can immediately see what it needs, or maybe what it doesn't need. Maybe it's done. But for some reason, looking at a painting through a screen is different. I wonder if there's a study on that. I should look that up. I'm gonna forget. Once this one's all done, I think I'm gonna try and paint some poinsettias. It has been a few years since I last painted a poinsettia, and I loved it. In fact, I even used this green, this Jadeite Genuine, in that painting. And yeah, I think I'm gonna try and do another one. So who knows, if it goes well, you'll be seeing another video on that. And if it doesn't go well, you obviously will not be seeing a video. Or who knows, maybe I'll show you anyway. You can see that even I don't get it right all the time. Now you probably have noticed that I have not been talking about this particular painting in a while, and that is because there's really not much more to say. Second verse, same as the first, I'm just doing the same thing over and over. But I'm not bored, I'm just almost meditating. I'm just in the moment. And I love that making art can bring me back to the moment. Let me breathe. Just let me be for a few minutes. And I guess just to recap, you don't need a lot of colors. Do a beautiful, fantastic, wet, atmospheric wash. If you want to use complementary colors, don't pet your painting and go in over and over. Put down your color and let it drip. And just take your time and enjoy. That's really all it comes down to. Do a little triangle, bleed it away. And here's the finished painting. If you liked this video, press that like button so I know to make more like this. And if you want to see more from me, press subscribe because I make videos every Monday and Thursday. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Bye!